My name is Nicole Morgan, and I am 32 years old. When the bank called saying I owed over $500,000 for a house, I had never seen my entire world stopped. The woman on the phone insisted I had signed for a mortgage that would take 2 lifetimes to pay off. As the puzzle pieces came together, one horrifying truth emerged. My own sister, Brooke Dawson, had stolen my identity. The person I had protected since childhood had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Before I share how this nightmare unfolded, let me know where you are watching from. Drop a like and subscribe if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. Trust me, what happened next at that family dinner changed everything. Life before that fateful phone call was remarkably ordinary, but I had worked hard for that ordinary. At 32, I had finally established myself at Horizon Marketing in downtown Minneapolis. My position as a digital strategist was not glamorous, but it paid well enough for me to afford my cozy one-bedroom apartment in Wicker Park. The rent was steep at nearly $2,000 a month, but I loved the neighborhood and the independence it represented. Financial stability had been my obsession since graduating college with student loans that seemed insurmountable at the time. For years, I lived with roommates, packed lunches, and declined weekend trips to slowly build my savings account. By last year, I had managed to save nearly $40,000 toward a down payment on my own place. My credit score was $79. I monitored religiously every month. This perfect credit score represented years of discipline and careful planning. My family situation was less idyllic than my financial one. My parents divorced when I was 12 and Brooke Dawson was just 7. Dad moved to Arizona with his new girlfriend barely 6 months after the separation, and his presence in our lives dwindled to occasional birthday calls and a check at Christmas. Mom was left to raise 2 daughters alone, working 2 jobs to keep us in our modest suburban home. Perhaps it was inevitable that Mom developed a special soft spot for Brooke Dawson. My sister was the baby of the family, naturally charismatic with her big blue eyes and quick laugh. She struggled more visibly with Dad leaving, having temper tantrums and crying fits that demanded attention. I, on the other hand, became the responsible one almost by default. While Mom worked late, I would cook dinner, help Brooke Dawson with homework, and make sure the house was clean. This dynamic followed us into adulthood. When Brooke Dawson dropped out of community college to pursue an acting career that never materialized, Mom defended her choice. When she moved back home at 25 after her 3rd failed relationship, Mom welcomed her with open arms. Meanwhile, my academic achievements and career progress were acknowledged with quick congratulations before conversations inevitably turned to concerns about Brooke Dawson. My relationship with my sister was complicated. As children, we had been close despite the 5-year age gap. I read her bedtime stories and braided her hair for school. I defended her against neighborhood bullies and taught her how to ride a bike. But as we grew older, the differences in our personalities became impossible to ignore. While I saved meticulously, Brooke Dawson spent extravagantly. Her apartment was always filled with designer clothes, still-bearing tags, electronics she barely used, and furniture that cost more than my monthly salary. When I asked how she afforded such luxuries on her sporadic income from waitressing and retail jobs, she would vaguely mention side hustles or investment opportunities. The red flags were there, but I ignored them. 3 times in the past 5 years, Brooke Dawson had called me in tears about overdrawn accounts or maxed-out credit cards. Each time I transferred money to her with lectures about budgeting that she pretended to take to heart. The last time, I wired Nicole all $6,000 so her landlord wouldn't toss her. "Pay you back with interest," she whispered over emojis. I never saw a dime. Rain against my apartment window smelled like roofs I'll never own. Then, 2 months ago, she texted, "Coffee in downtown Minneapolis." Sunlight flashed off her Celine coat as she lifted a foam art rose. "I did it," she sang. "I bought a house." The espresso burned my tongue. "Where?" "Lake Minnetonka. 4-bed, 3-bath, pool next summer." "Lakefront?" Loans? Down payment? I totaled student debt stacked like alphabet blocks. She totaled zero explanation. Nicole twirled her spoon. Saving. Plus James. James, the invisible banker boyfriend, always in Dubai. I asked for an address. She switched to my apartment size. We hugged. I tasted sugar and silence on my lips. 4 weeks later, my phone rang. Auto era voicemail. Checking account compromised. Contact branch? I laughed. I hack-proof my password like I bulletproof my budget. Retina scanner at the bank. The manager opens a folder. My social shows 2 more numbers. Within 1 statement, mortgage in Egan, maxed credit line at IKEA, new Audi lease. Someone cloned you, he says. Rain scent floods through vents. I imagine strangers in my name, scrawling their dreams with my signature. I flip pages. Shared vendor at both accounts. Ariana Chase collection, where Nicole waitressed. My heart pulses Morse code. I call. She doesn't pick up. That same night, headlights crawl across my ceiling. Tires whisper, stop. I peek through blinds. Nicole hugs a duffel from a matte gray SUV. Miss Morgan, the hallway camera warns, motion detected. The week unrolls. Overdraft emails. Fraud flags. Achievement blush drains to pale dread. My mom corners me during her night shift break. She looks like 5 a.m. coffee. Nicole says you're spreading drama. I show the forged signature. Mom's eyes brim. Rain she didn't choose. She recalls the Christmas check and Lori Nagy eviction. Maybe you 3 can sit down, she sighs. Words she had for every overdue rent crisis. I wait on the stoop painted same slate since high school. Nicole finally texts, Brood Haven, 3:30. Inside, rainfall drum hits the skylight. Steam curls above Americanos. Nicole arrives in that same Burberry trench. Tag still clipped. Maybe tomorrow's return policy. Her 4th latte of the day trembles like violin strings. I slide the folder across walnut. Photos, notarized forms. FICO drop. I watch desire stretch skin over bones. Explain the mortgage in my name. She avoids the river of my gaze. A misunderstanding. My signature next to your boyfriend's? He needed a higher credit. Voice small, helium weak. Her phone lights up. James calling. Voice note plays on speaker. Got the appraisal. We flip in 90 days. A rasp cuts my chest. She stole my trust the way wind takes autumn leaves. You'll co-sign a refinance, she bargains. I'll pay you back. My laugh sounds scraped. Drop the act, Nicole. Rain drifts inside as a couple exits. The floor smells of cedar and panic. I glance at the exit. Mom waits under yellow canopy. Confusion and gluten-free scones. I hand Nicole a crimson envelope. Walnut-scented for drama. Inside, fraud claim paperwork, already stamped. Her face freezes. You'd ruin Christmas. My credit already did. I rise. Chair screech slices cafe din. Tears kiss her mascara, tracing new canals. I whisper, Lake Minnetonka loan post to collections at 8 a.m. Unless you speak to the agent I've got on hold. I lift the phone, blue light reflecting off her wet cheeks. Storm megadrops hit the skylight like small applause. A simple question hangs in humid air. Was the house ever about a home, or just a score? The number was unfamiliar, but I answered anyway, balancing my phone between my ear and shoulder as I sorted through presentation slides. Hello, am I speaking with Nicole Morgan Walsh? A professional female voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Patricia Miller from Lakeside Financial. I am calling regarding your mortgage payment, which is now 60 days past due. I froze. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I do not have a mortgage. There was a pause on the other end. Miss Walsh, according to our records, you took out a mortgage for $568,000 for a property at 720 Oakage Drive in Lake Forest last November. The monthly payment is $3,212, and we have not received payment for January or February." My stomach dropped. That is impossible. I never purchased any property in Lake Forest. What followed was a 30-minute conversation that left me shaking. According to Patricia, I had not only signed mortgage documents for an expensive suburban home, but had made payments for the first 3 months before suddenly stopping. When I insisted there had been a mistake, she agreed to email me copies of the loan documents. 10 minutes later, I stared at my computer screen in horror. There it was, a complete mortgage application with all my personal information, my social security number, employment history, bank account details, and a signature that looked remarkably like mine, but was not. The property address sounded vaguely familiar. I opened Google Maps and typed it in my hands, trembling. The street view showed a large, elegant 2-story home with a circular driveway and professional landscaping. Then it hit me with sickening clarity. This was the house Brooke Dawson had been describing at our coffee meeting. I called in sick to work and spent the next several hours in a frantic investigation. I pulled my credit report, something I had not done in nearly 6 months. The mortgage was there along with 3 new credit cards I had never applied for. The air in Diane Lopez's office smelled like burnt espresso and rain-soaked leaves from the cracked open window. My pulse pounded behind my ears. I slid a folder across the desk. Diane opened it. Nicole Morgan Walsh. Identity theft? I nodded. Not some scammer overseas. Your sister? A flat statement. Diane's phone buzzed mid-sentence. She glanced at it. Her face went pale. Then she spun the screen to me. A selfie. Brooke. Laughing inside a downtown Minneapolis loft I'd only seen on Pinterest ads. Arms around. Alex. My boyfriend of 4 years. Our anniversary sushi date flashed in my head. Candlelight. His promise. The room tilted. Wait. What am I looking at? Alex kissing Brooke's forehead. Ring box glinting in his hand. Caption. Lake Minnetonka proposal tonight. My lungs quit. Brooke wasn't just after money. She was after everything. Diane whispered, "They're using your stolen credit line to finance the ring." A cold wind cut through cracked window glass. My skin went numb. I leaned back. Heartbeat slowed, weirdly calm. Rage, icy clean, replaced panic. "Print me that photo," I said. Diane hit Ctrl+P. Paper slid out, edges curling like a warning. I folded it, pocketed it. My next words tasted like copper. File the police report. Full charges. Fraud. Identity theft. Conspiracy. Diane blinked. "Are you sure?" "Family." I cut her off. She crossed the bloodline and lit it on fire. Time to finish what she started. Diane's fingers flew across the keyboard. Sirens in the distance sounded almost melodic. I stared at my reflection in the dark glass. Eyes hard, jaw tight. Not the girl who used to split brunch bills. Someone new. Brooke wanted the American dream on my credit. Tonight, I'd serve her the American bill. No mercy. Just receipts. Outside, thunder growled. I walked into the downpour, drops slicing like tiny blades. I tasted rain. Felt alive. The city lights shimmered wet. I whispered, "Round 2, sis." "And it's my turn to swipe," Diane warned. "We are talking months, possibly over a year to completely clear your credit. And if your sister actually contests the charges claiming you authorized her to use your information, it could become even more complicated." I left Diane's office with a decision to make that would change my family forever. Could I really file a police report against my own sister? The person I had helped raise, the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. But as I drove home, anger began to replace my shock. Brooke Dawson had not made a one-time mistake or borrowed my credit card for an emergency. She had executed an elaborate scheme, systematically stealing my identity to finance a fantasy life while knowing it would eventually destroy my financial future. The premeditation was chilling. I tried calling Brooke Dawson that evening. The call went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. "We need to talk about the house in Lake Forest. Call me immediately." Hours passed with no response. I called again the next morning. Nothing. By the third day of silence, my decision was made. I could not protect Brooke Dawson from the consequences of her actions. Not this time. With hands that would not stop shaking, I drove to the police station and filed a report for identity theft. After filing the police report, I decided I needed to confront Brooke Dawson in person. Since my calls and texts continued to go unanswered, I had no choice but to drive to the address on the mortgage documents the house purchased with my stolen identity. The drive to Lake Forest took nearly an hour from my apartment. As I turned on to Oakage Drive, the houses grew progressively larger and more impressive. When I pulled up to number 720, my breath caught in my throat. The house was even more imposing in person than it had appeared on Google Maps. A sprawling, colonial-style home with perfect symmetry. It sat on at least an acre of professionally landscaped property. Brooke Dawson's knuckles whitened around the brass doorknob, her laugh cracking like thin ice. "Prove it," she hissed, her phone buzzing ominously in her pocket. As sirens swelled from the cul-de-sac, I heard my name, screamed, frantic, on the porch camera feed she was streaming. The screen glitched, then went black. Did the police come for me? Or for her? I stood there, heart racing, memories flooding back. This was the sister I had raised, the little girl who once sought comfort during thunderstorms. But now, betrayal hung heavy in the air. I had just filed a police report against her for identity theft. The weight of that decision crushed me. Could I really do this? Driving to confront her felt like a descent into a nightmare. The house in Lake Forest loomed ahead, a sprawling colonial that represented everything she had stolen from me. My identity, my credit, my trust. A luxury SUV I didn't recognize sat in the circular driveway, mocking me. I took a deep breath, gathering courage before finally ringing the doorbell. Brooke Dawson opened the door, her expression shifting from shock to feigned innocence. "Nicole Morgan, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice brittle. "We need to talk," I said, stepping forward. "About this house, the mortgage, and the credit cards you opened fraudulently." Her face paled, but she quickly masked it. "I don't know what you're talking about. James bought this house." "Stop lying, Brooke Dawson. I've seen the mortgage documents with my forged signature. The bank is calling me about missed payments." She glanced nervously over her shoulder, then stepped onto the porch, pulling the door mostly closed. "Look, it's not what you think. It was supposed to be temporary. James and I are getting married in June, and he's going to refinance everything in his name." "James?" I repeated, the name feeling foreign. "Does he even exist?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "Of course he exists. He travels for work. He's in London right now." "Then call him. I want to speak to him. He's in meetings." "The time difference." "Let me inside," I demanded, my patience evaporating. After a moment of hesitation, she stepped aside. The interior was as impressive as the exterior. Soaring ceilings, hardwood floors, furniture straight out of a design magazine. But something felt off. The air was thick with tension, and I could sense the lies lurking just beneath the surface. As I stepped inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. What had my sister really done? And how far would she go to protect her secrets? There were no personal photographs, no evidence of a male occupant, and several rooms contained furniture that still had tags attached. "How could you do this?" I asked, turning to face her in the expansive kitchen with its marble countertops and high-end appliances. "You stole my identity. You committed fraud. Do you understand what you have done to my credit, to my financial future?" "You are being dramatic," Brooke Dawson scoffed, though her eyes would not meet mine. "Your credit will recover, and it is not like you were using it for anything important. Not using it. I have been saving for years to buy my own place. A tiny condo somewhere, probably. Meanwhile, this house has already appreciated almost $100,000. She gestured around proudly. "I made a smart investment with my name and credit without my knowledge or permission." Brooke Dawson's expression hardened. "You have always been so selfish, Nicole Morgan. You have a good job and savings. I had nothing. Was I supposed to wait tables forever while you hoarded your perfect credit score like some kind of trophy?" I was speechless. In Brooke Dawson's distorted reality, I was the villain for not willingly sacrificing my financial security for her benefit. There was no remorse, no acknowledgement of the harm she had caused, only entitlement and resentment. Over the next few days, I dug deeper into Brooke Dawson's deception. A former colleague who worked in real estate helped me access property records, revealing that James had never been part of the mortgage application. The down payment, nearly $60,000, had come from an account in Brooke Dawson's name. How she had accumulated that much money became clear when I discovered through social media connections that Brooke Dawson had been borrowing money from various friends and acquaintances, promising returns from investment opportunities that never materialized. One particularly illuminating conversation was with Caitlin, a former roommate of Heather's, who contacted me after seeing my name in connection with the Lake Forest property. She told everyone she was engaged to an investment banker named James Caitlin, explained over coffee. She would show up with expensive gifts she claimed were from him, but I never saw them together. When I asked to meet him, there was always some excuse. Caitlin had loaned Brooke Dawson $12,000 to invest in a startup James was advising. She never saw that money again, and when she pressed for repayment, Brooke Dawson blocked her on all platforms. She was running a small-time Ponzi scheme, Caitlin concluded, taking money from new friends to pay back older ones, just enough to keep people from going to the police. But I guess she needed a bigger score. That bigger score had been my identity, my perfect credit history that had allowed her to secure a mortgage and credit cards. No bank would have approved with her own financial history. The final blow came when my mother called her voice, shaking with anger. "How could you go to the police about your sister?" she demanded without preamble. My stomach dropped. "Mom, she stole my identity. She took out a mortgage and credit cards in my name without my knowledge. She made a mistake. She was desperate. That does not mean you turned family over to the police. A mistake, Mom. This was calculated identity theft to the tune of over $600,000. She said you knew about it. My mother insisted that you agreed to help her get started and then changed your mind." The lie was so audacious it left me momentarily speechless. That is absolutely false. I had no idea until the bank called about missed payments. My mother's voice softened to the wheedling tone she had always used when asking me to accommodate Brooke Dawson's needs above my own. "Surely there is another way to resolve this. She is your sister. Family helps family." Where was this family loyalty when she was stealing my identity? I asked bitterly. "Nicole Morgan." "Jean Walsh," my mother snapped, using my full name as she had when I was a child in trouble. "You need to drop these charges and work this out privately. Think about what this will do to Brooke Dawson's future if she has a criminal record. What about my future? With this debt and destroyed credit, you will manage. You always do. Brooke Dawson is more vulnerable." The conversation ended with my mother's disappointment heavy in my ears. Once again, I was expected to sacrifice my well-being to protect Brooke Dawson from consequences she fully deserved. For the first time in my life, I was prepared to refuse. After the confrontation with Brooke Dawson and the distressing call from my mother, I knew I needed professional guidance beyond legal advice. I scheduled an appointment with Marcus Daniels, a financial advisor recommended by my attorney who specialized in identity theft recovery. His office was located in a downtown high-rise with a view of Lake Michigan that would normally have impressed me. That day, however, I barely noticed it clutching my folder of documents like a lifeline. "The impact of this kind of identity theft is far-reaching," Marcus explained after reviewing my situation. "Beyond the immediate debt, we are looking at 3 to 7 years of credit impacts. This will affect your ability to rent apartments, finance a car, obtain certain jobs, and definitely purchase your own home." He pulled up a projection on his computer screen showing my financial trajectory with and without the fraudulent debt. The contrast was stark and devastating. Even if the creditors eventually remove these accounts from your record, which is not guaranteed, the damage to your credit score will linger. We will need to initiate disputes with all 3 credit bureaus, contact each creditor with copies of the police report, and prepare for a lengthy battle. When I asked about the timeline for resolution, his expression grew somber. Nicole Morgan sat in the sleek office of Marcus Daniels, her heart racing. The view of Lake Michigan was stunning, but all she could focus on was the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. Just moments ago, she had been blindsided by her sister, Brooke Dawson, who had stolen her identity for financial gain. The betrayal cut deep, and now Nicole was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. As Marcus explained the long road ahead, Nicole felt the walls closing in. In the best-case scenario, we might resolve this in 6 to 8 months, he said, his voice steady but grim. Realistically, it could take up to 18 months. 18 months? The thought made her stomach churn. How could she endure a year of fighting to reclaim her identity? The $40,000 she had saved for a home was slipping through her fingers, destined for legal fees instead. Just then, her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Was it Brooke? A debt collector? The tension in the room thickened. Nicole's palms grew clammy as she hovered over the accept button. Should she risk hearing another blow to her already fragile situation? Or should she ignore it and remain in suspense? "Nicole, you need to take control of this," Marcus urged, sensing her hesitation. "You can't let her win." His words echoed in her mind as she weighed her options. The scent of rain wafted through the open window, a reminder of the storm brewing in her life. With a deep breath, she hit accept. "Hello?" "Nicole, it's Brooke," came the voice on the other end, dripping with false sweetness. "We need to talk." Nicole's heart raced. What could Brooke possibly say that would make this right? The betrayal felt like a knife twisting deeper. "Why should I trust you?" Nicole shot back, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Because I'm still your sister," Brooke replied, but the words felt hollow. Nicole's mind raced. Could she ever rebuild the trust that had been shattered? The stakes were high and the clock was ticking. She had to reclaim her financial security and her life. As she hung up, the weight of the situation settled in. The battle was just beginning, and she was determined to fight for her future. Would she be able to navigate the treacherous waters of family betrayal and emerge victorious? Only time would tell. Perpetrators often rely on family loyalty to escape consequences. They assume the victim will eventually drop charges rather than see a family member prosecuted. "My mother is certainly expecting that," I admitted. "And what do you want?" she asked, studying me carefully. The question stopped me short. What did I want? I had been operating on autopilot since discovering the fraud, reacting to each new development without a clear end goal beyond clearing my name. "I want my financial identity restored," I said slowly. "I want my sister to face consequences for what she did, and I want her to acknowledge the harm she caused me." Detective Collins nodded. "Those are reasonable desires. But I should warn you, in these cases, full resolution in all 3 areas is rare. The system can help restore your financial standing eventually. Legal consequences can be pursued, but the personal acknowledgement you seek, the admission of wrongdoing and genuine remorse, that is beyond what the legal system can provide." Her honesty was both refreshing and daunting. I realized I had been harboring a fantasy that some authority figure, some system, would not only undo the practical damage, but also force Brooke Dawson to truly understand and regret her actions. The reality was far more complicated. As the investigation proceeded, my mother's pressure intensified. She called daily, alternating between guilt trips about family loyalty and thinly veiled threats about permanent estrangement. If I continued persecuting Brooke Dawson, other family members began reaching out as well. Their understanding of the situation clearly filtered through my mother's biased lens. "Could you not have worked this out privately?" my Aunt Susan asked during one particularly difficult call. "Taking family matters to the police seems extreme. She stole over $600,000 of debt in my name," I repeated for what felt like the 100th time. "That is not a family matter. It is a crime." Through it all, I maintained my resolve. The sun poured through the kitchen window, casting warm beams across Mom's oak table, like soft honey drizzling over cinnamon rolls. The sweet scent of vanilla filled the air as Brooke Dawson playfully buttered our plates, her laughter mingling with the hum of the fridge. In that moment, everything felt safe. Nicole Morgan's giggles echoed like the carefree swings of a tire in the backyard. But then, a single fleck of icing landed on Brooke Dawson's cheek. Nicole Morgan reached out to wipe it away, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. The room smelled only of trust. Or so she thought. Fast forward to the chaos that followed. Nicole Morgan, once a beacon of financial discipline and hard work, found herself betrayed by the one person she trusted most, her sister, Brooke Dawson. Identity theft isn't just a crime, it's a gut-wrenching betrayal that shatters the very foundation of family. Brooke, driven by greed, had stolen Nicole Morgan's identity, racking up over $600,000 in debt. The betrayal cut deep, leaving Nicole Morgan determined to reclaim her financial security and rebuild the trust that had been so cruelly ripped away. As Nicole Morgan navigated the murky waters of legal battles, she met with Detective Collins, who laid out the harsh reality. Full resolution is rare. The weight of her mother's guilt trips and family loyalty loomed large. "Couldn't you work this out privately?" her Aunt Susan asked, as if the theft was just a family squabble. But Nicole Morgan knew better. This was no family matter, it was a crime. With each passing day, Nicole Morgan prepared for the monthly family dinner, a tradition that now felt like a battlefield. She had missed February's gathering, still reeling from the shock. March was approaching, and with it, the tension of facing Brooke. "It'll be a good opportunity for you two to talk," her mother suggested, but Nicole Morgan had no intention of letting Brooke twist the narrative. Instead, she gathered evidence. Police reports, forged signatures, credit card statements, each document a reminder of why she couldn't back down. The night before the dinner, Nicole Morgan met with her allies, Marcus and Diane. "Your goal isn't to humiliate her," Diane advised, "but to establish the truth." Nicole Morgan nodded, though a small part of her craved justice, a chance for Brooke to feel the weight of her actions. Alone in her apartment, she rehearsed her words, steeling herself for the confrontation that awaited. Would she find the strength to stand her ground? Would the truth finally emerge from the shadows? The answers lay just beyond the door, waiting for the family dinner to unfold. I braced myself for tears, anger, and manipulation, classic moves from Brooke Dawson whenever her actions were called into question. But what I didn't expect was the strange calm that washed over me as I made my final decision. After years of putting my sister first, I was finally choosing to protect myself. The guilt I thought would consume me was replaced by a liberating sense of freedom. For once, I wouldn't carry the weight of Brooke's choices. She would. Sunday arrived, and with it came an air of inevitability. I slipped into a simple blue dress that radiated confidence, applied just a touch of makeup, and styled my hair in a neat bun. The folder filled with damning documents sat on my passenger seat, a physical reminder of the boundary I was finally ready to establish. As I drove the 30 minutes to my mother's suburban home, the familiar sights blurred past, each one a reminder of the life I once knew. When I arrived, several cars were already parked in the driveway, including a rental that I assumed belonged to Brooke. Her luxury SUV would have raised too many questions about her financial situation. My mother's home was modest but well kept, the same house where Brooke and I had shared countless memories. Walking up the familiar path to the front door, I felt a surreal disconnect between the comfort this place once offered and the confrontation that loomed inside. My mother opened the door with a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nicole, I'm glad you came," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. The living room was filled with familiar faces. My Uncle Robert, Aunt Susan, Cousin Tyler and his wife Kayla, and Gloria, my mother's longtime friend. They greeted me with varying degrees of warmth, their expressions hinting they sensed some tension, but were likely unaware of the full story. As I stepped inside, the scent of my mother's famous apple pie wafted through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of fresh-cut grass from the backyard. Memories flooded back. Brooke and I laughing in the sun, a time before betrayal tainted our bond. I could almost hear her sweet voice, promising to always have my back. But that was before the shadows crept in, before whispers of deceit turned our laughter into echoes of mistrust. The weight of the folder beside me felt heavier, a reminder of the truth I was finally ready to confront. Would I find the strength to stand my ground? Would the truth finally emerge from the shadows? The answers lay just beyond the door, waiting for the family dinner to unfold. As I sat at the dinner table, the aroma of roast chicken filled the air, mingling with the faint scent of lavender from the candles. I could hear the clinking of silverware and the soft laughter of family, but my heart raced with betrayal. Brooke's laughter rang hollow, a stark contrast to the warmth of our childhood memories. I remembered the summer days spent in our backyard, sharing secrets and dreams, now tainted by her deceit. The taste of my mother's famous dinner rolls was bittersweet, reminding me of the trust that had crumbled like stale bread. Brooke was the last to enter the room, emerging from the kitchen with a platter of appetizers, as if she were the hostess rather than a guest. She wore an expensive-looking dress I recognized from a high-end boutique, her hair and makeup flawless. When she saw me, she barely paused before placing the platter on the coffee table. "Nicole, you made it," she said lightly, as if we hadn't had a confrontation at her fraudulently obtained house just weeks earlier. "Mom wasn't sure you would come." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, maintaining eye contact until she looked away. Dinner was a master class in surface normalcy, covering churning undercurrents. My mother had prepared her standard Sunday feast: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, and her famous dinner rolls. The conversation flowed around safe topics: current events, Tyler and Kayla's plans for a kitchen renovation, Aunt Susan's recent vacation. Throughout the meal, I remained mostly silent, responding when directly addressed, but otherwise observing. Brooke, by contrast, was uncharacteristically animated, dominating the conversation with stories about her work, her social life, and vague references to her boyfriend, James, who was traveling for business again. "He's looking at investment properties in Boston," she explained to the table at large. "We're thinking of buying a vacation condo there." I noted how my mother beamed at this declaration, proud of her younger daughter's apparent success. The irony was bitter, knowing that Brooke's lifestyle was built on fraud and deception. As dinner progressed, Brooke became increasingly bold, perhaps interpreting my silence as submission or defeat. "Nicole, you should let me introduce you to James's friend, Michael," she said during a lull in conversation. "He works in finance, too. You two would have so much in common, and he has a beautiful condo downtown." The condescension in her tone was unmistakable. Could she really be this oblivious? Or was this her way of taunting me? The tension in the room thickened, and I could feel the weight of the folder beside me, a reminder of the truth I was finally ready to confront. Would I find the strength to stand my ground? Would the truth finally emerge from the shadows? The answers lay just beyond the surface, waiting for the family dinner to unfold. Positioning herself as the golden child, the sister who made it, and could now toss crumbs to the broke one. Rain tapped the bay window like a countdown. Vanilla ice cream slid off the pie's edge, pooling like melted credit. I steadied my breath, drew the folder from my purse. "Before you play matchmaker, Brooke, we talk." Forks froze. Mom's smile cracked. "Nicole, not here," she whispered. I flipped the folder open. Here is perfect. Paper rustled, sharp, dry, louder than the leaf storm outside. I slid the police report across the linen. 3 weeks ago I filed this. Identity theft. Someone stole my SSN, forged my signature, snagged a $568K mortgage, maxed cards I never opened. Silence dropped like a theater curtain. Brooke's fork clattered. Ice cream dripped. Slow, sticky guilt. I laid the mortgage docs beside the report. Lake Forest House, my name, not my ink. Brooke lives there. She forced a laugh. Misunderstanding. Nicole agreed to float me till James refinances after the wedding. I met her eyes. I never agreed to bleed for your fantasy. Gasps circled the table like winter crows. Aunt Susan's chair scraped. This can't be. I flipped to the last page. A red stamp glared. Confidential. Vice investigation. The room tilted. Across from me sat Brooke. Or was it? Same face, colder eyes. Mom's fork slipped. But Brooke died last winter. The words hung like frost. Flash of blue tape across the table. Crime scene memory. The fork on the plate wasn't Brooke's. It was mine, still warm from the hand of the sister I'd argued with every night in my head. The ghost of guilt I'd been feeding sat across from me, wearing her smile, holding her lies. Pie cooled. Rain softened. I closed the folder. Justice starts now. The room fell silent, tension thick in the air as Nicole Morgan's heart raced. She could feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on her chest, each breath a reminder of the trust shattered. Brooke Dawson's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but Nicole knew better. The truth hung like a storm cloud, ready to unleash chaos. "What else are you hiding, Brooke?" Nicole's voice trembled, a mix of anger and desperation. The question lingered, echoing in the silence, leaving everyone on edge, waiting for the next revelation. Nicole had no idea about the mortgage or the credit cards until the bank called about missed payments. And she strongly suspected James didn't exist, at least not as the wealthy financier Brooke had described. Her mother stood abruptly. "That is enough, Nicole. I will not have you attacking your sister this way." "Attacking her? Mom, she committed fraud. She stole my identity. She has destroyed my credit and left me liable for over $600,000 of debt." Uncle Robert leaned forward, his expression grave. "Is this true, Brooke? Did you use your sister's information without her permission?" Brooke's eyes darted around the table, assessing her audience. Finding no automatic allies beyond their mother, her strategy shifted. "I was desperate," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "The housing market was moving so fast and I was going to lose my dream home. I planned to tell Nicole, but then everything happened so quickly." "You had months to tell me," Nicole countered. "You made payments from your account for 3 months, then stopped. This was not a split-second decision. It was calculated fraud." "Where did you get the money for the down payment?" Tyler asked, his background in banking making him perhaps the quickest to understand the full implications. Brooke's tears disappeared as quickly as they had appeared. "That is none of your business." "Actually, it might be many people's business," Nicole said. "I have spoken to several of Brooke's friends who loaned her money for supposed investments that never materialized. It seems she has been running a small-scale Ponzi scheme for years." The table erupted in overlapping voices, questions, and exclamations, creating a cacophony of confusion and disbelief. Their mother repeatedly tried to shut down the conversation while Aunt Susan and Uncle Robert pressed for answers. Through it all, Brooke's expression cycled through panic, anger, and calculation. Finally, as the initial shock subsided, Brooke adopted a new approach. "Fine," she said loudly, silencing the table. The storm was far from over. What would she reveal next? "Yes, I used Nicole Morgan's information for the mortgage, but only because she always had everything handed to her while I struggled." "Handed to me," I repeated incredulously. "I worked 2 jobs through college. I lived with roommates for years to save money. I built my credit score through careful planning and sacrifice. You were always the perfect one, Brooke Dawson spat. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect credit. Do you know what it is like living in that shadow? Mom made it clear you were the responsible one, the successful one. So, you decided to steal my identity because you were jealous, I asked, genuinely bewildered by her reasoning. I decided to take what I deserved. Why should you hoard a perfect credit score when I needed it more than you did? You were not even using it for anything important. The raw entitlement in her voice stunned the table into silence. Even my mother looked taken back by the naked resentment in Brooke Dawson's justification. Brooke Dawson. Uncle Robert said slowly, "What you did is not just morally wrong. It is a serious crime. Identity theft involving this amount of money could mean jail time." "No one is going to jail," my mother interjected frantically. "This is a family matter that we will resolve privately. It stopped being just a family matter when she committed fraud," I said firmly. "The investigation is already underway. The mortgage company and credit card companies are cooperating with the police." Brooke Dawson's composure finally cracked completely. "You would really send your own sister to jail after everything I have done for you?" The absurdity of the question might have been laughable if it were not so infuriating. "What exactly have you done for me, Brooke Dawson? Name one thing." She faltered, unable to produce a single example. In the weighted silence, the full extent of our unbalanced relationship became clear to everyone at the table. The rain drummed on the Subaru sunroof like a war drum. Nicole's pulse matched every splash on the cracked Minneapolis asphalt. I stared at the foreclosure notice in my hand, the paper that used to be somebody's future. Inside the house, Brooke Dawson, my sister, sat at a folding card table, eyes darting like a cornered raccoon. "What do you want?" she whispered. I tasted copper in my breath. Was justice worth this much blood between siblings? The cedar-paneled living room smelled of wet drywall and desperation. Brooke's fingers trembled as she clutched a chipped ceramic cat, a childish token from our shared bedroom. "Drop the police report," she said. "I'll pay every dime back." "With what cash, Brooke? The repo man took your escape yesterday." She swallowed. The sound was loud enough for the echoing silence after. Uncle Rob's words still rang in my head. Wire fraud indictments for 6 figures can mean 6 years. I could hear Mom's muffled sob from the kitchen where she hid behind her apron. The floor creaks sounded like old bones breaking. A breeze curled through the open screen door, carrying the sour scent of leaf mulch and regret. "Admit everything," I said, each word flat as stamped steel. Her cheeks burned. Guilt and pride traded blows behind her mascara. "I was tired of living in your shadow," she confessed. Same song, new verse. My credit score, carefully built through ramen nights and 5 a.m. side hustles, was now a pile of canceled cards. A single late payment spikes the APR. 17 late payments? That's a burial. I slid the statement across the table. 38,000 in fraudulent loans. Her lip quivered. "I thought you were too busy to notice." "Notice?" "I track every penny like a hawk, Brooke." Rain intensified. Lightning flashed, cutting our faces in half light, half dark, exactly how we stood now. She reached for my wrist. "Please, your name comes off it. No criminal record. End of story." I pictured the courtroom. Gray walls, the scent of binder paper, jurors who've also been chewed up by student debts. Would they see her as a victim or a con artist who'd stolen my identity, my name, the last thing I truly owned free and clear? "You forged my signature," I said. That signature used to be on birthday cards she handed me with crayon drawings. Her jaw set. "We were poor. You had opportunities." "I worked 2 jobs while you partied downtown on credit I paid every month," I shot back. The silence swelled, thicker than humidity. Mom appeared in the doorway, red-eyed, holding a crumpled tissue like a white flag. I won't lose both my daughters, she pleaded. I exhaled a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. Brooke stared at the ceiling as if God kept a running tab. Outside, sirens in the distance. Cop car, ambulance, or just a neighborhood reminder that life keeps moving. I'll give you the rest of today, I said. Her shoulders caved like a tent losing poles. The cat ceramic slipped from her fingers. It cracked against the floor the same way our family did years ago. Small chip, then spiral fracture. I need to see you walk into Precinct 4 tomorrow at 9. Bring your attorney. Bring contrition. Bring nothing else. Her voice cracked. What if I run? I stepped into the rain, droplets kissing my eyelashes. Then the cops chase harder, I said. Door slam. Engine. Headlights carved golden swords across the wet drive. The weight on my chest eased by an ounce, maybe 2. The road ahead still stretched into student loan purgatory and overpriced city rent, but tonight, at least, the compass pointed forward. 1 mile gone. The rearview mirror showed no headlights tailing me. Maybe Brooke would show up. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, dawn would come cold, clear, and undeniable. Detective Collins called 3 days after the confrontation to inform me that Brooke Dawson had been arrested and charged with identity theft, forgery, and fraud. The amount involved elevated the charges to felony level with potential penalties, including significant fines and prison time. She is cooperating now, Detective Collins explained. She has provided a full statement, admitting to using your information without permission and forging your signature on the documents. The news brought a complex mixture of relief and sadness. While Brooke Dawson's confession would significantly streamline the process of clearing my name with creditors, the reality of my sister facing criminal charges was still difficult to process. What happens next? I asked. She will be arraigned next week. Given that this is her first offense and she is cooperating, her attorney will likely negotiate a plea deal. She is currently out on bail. I later learned that my mother had mortgaged her own home to post Brooke Dawson's $50,000 bail. A fact that was not surprising, but still painful. Once again, my mother had committed her resources to rescuing Brooke Dawson without hesitation. The legal consequences were just the beginning. As Marcus had predicted, resolving the financial aspects of Brooke Dawson's fraud proved to be a long and arduous process. Even with the police report and Brooke Dawson's confession, each creditor had its own procedures for fraud claims requiring multiple submissions of documentation, notarized statements, and endless phone calls. The mortgage company was particularly challenging. While they acknowledged the fraud, the foreclosure process on the Lake Forest house continued, with my name still attached to the proceedings. Marcus explained that until the title could be legally cleared, the foreclosure would show in public records associated with my name, further damaging my credit in the short term. We need to be patient, he reminded me during one particularly frustrating meeting. My carefully accumulated savings dwindled as I paid for legal representation, credit monitoring services, and basic living expenses during my unpaid leave. Sleep became elusive with anxiety about my financial future keeping me awake late into the night. Even simple tasks like checking my mail became stress-inducing exercises, each envelope potentially containing new complications or demands related to Brooke Dawson's fraud. 3 months after filing the police report, I realized I needed professional help to manage the emotional impact of the situation. I began seeing Dr. Eleanor Reed, a therapist specializing in family trauma and betrayal. What you are experiencing is a form of grief, Dr. Reed explained during our second session. You have lost trust in a primary relationship, lost financial security, and lost the family dynamic you were accustomed to, problematic as it may have been. She helped me recognize that my responsibility for Brooke Dawson had been an unhealthy pattern established in childhood and reinforced by my mother's expectations. Learning to separate Brooke Dawson's choices from my own sense of obligation became a central focus of our work together. You did not cause this situation, Dr. Reed reminded me. You cannot control how Brooke Dawson or your mother respond to it. The only element you can control is your own response and the boundaries you establish moving forward. Those boundaries were tested 6 months into the legal proceedings when Brooke Dawson's attorney negotiated a plea deal. In exchange for a guilty plea to reduce charges, she would receive 3 years of probation, mandatory financial counseling, 200 hours of community service, and an order to make full restitution for all fraudulent debts. The day after accepting the plea, Brooke Dawson called me directly for the first time since the family dinner confrontation. "Nicole Morgan," she began, her voice smaller than I had ever heard it. "I know you probably do not want to talk to me, but please, just listen." I remained silent, allowing her to continue. "I am sorry," she said, the words sounding awkward and unfamiliar in her mouth. "What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong when I did it, and I kept doing it anyway. Why?" I asked the question that had haunted me for months. Brooke Dawson sighed heavily. "Because it was easy. Because I convinced myself you would never know. Because I was jealous of how together your life seemed while mine was falling apart. None of these are good reasons. I know that now." Her apology seemed genuine, but experience had taught me to be cautious about Brooke Dawson's apparent insights. Too often in the past, her moments of clarity had been performative, designed to elicit forgiveness without genuine change. "I appreciate you saying that," I said carefully, "but I need more than words at this point. I know my lawyer says the restitution will take years, but I am going to pay back everything. I am selling all the stuff I bought looking for a real job and Mom's house." I asked, aware that our mother's decision to mortgage her home for Brooke Dawson's bail had created yet another financial entanglement. Brooke Dawson was quiet for a moment. "I am trying to figure that out too. She should not lose her house because of me." The conversation ended without resolution or reconciliation, but it represented a small step toward acknowledgement of reality, a quality that had been notably absent in our interactions throughout adulthood. As the 1-year mark of the initial discovery approached, I had managed to clear about 60% of the fraudulent debt from my credit report. The foreclosure on the Lake Forest house had been completed with the legal documentation properly noting the fraud. 2 of the 3 credit cards had been fully resolved, with the third still in dispute. My credit score had recovered partially, though it remained well below its previous level. The financial experts estimated another 6 to 12 months before my credit would be fully restored. The emotional restoration would take longer, with family relationships fundamentally altered by the experience. My mother and I maintained minimal contact, our conversations strained and superficial. She continued to support Brooke Dawson, helping her find an apartment and a job after she was forced to leave the foreclosed house. While she no longer openly blamed me for Brooke Dawson's legal troubles, her resentment remained palpable in every interaction. I had returned to work and was slowly rebuilding my savings. Though my home-buying plans remained on indefinite hold, the experience had changed my financial perspective, making me more cautious, but also more determined to reclaim the security that had been stolen from me. Dr. Reed helped me recognize that while the practical consequences of Brooke Dawson's actions would eventually resolve the breach of trust, was something I might never fully recover from. Learning to accept this permanent change to move forward without the expectation of complete restoration became the focus of my personal growth. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or pretending the harm never occurred, she explained. It means releasing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment while maintaining appropriate boundaries to prevent future harm. Finding that balance between self-protection and emotional freedom would be my challenge in the months and years ahead. The road to recovery, both financial and emotional, stretched before me long, but no longer insurmountable. 1 year and 3 months after that, life-altering phone call from the bank. I stood in the small office of Marcus Daniels, my financial advisor, as he delivered news I had been waiting for. "Congratulations, Nicole Morgan," he said, sliding a document across his desk. "The last fraudulent account has been removed from your credit report, Your score is not quite back to where it was, but at 740, you are firmly back in the excellent range. I stared at the report, emotions welling up unexpectedly. As I stepped into the sunlight, a message pinged on my phone, shattering the fragile peace I had just begun to build. It was a video link from an anonymous account titled, "The Truth About Nicole." My heart raced as I clicked it, the screen flickering to life with a familiar face, Brooke, smirking, revealing her next move. The betrayal cut deeper than before, a reminder that the battle for my identity was far from over. The world around me blurred as the weight of her deceit crashed down, leaving me gasping for breath in the bright spring air. How could someone I trusted turn against me so easily? The scent of rain lingered in the air, mixing with the rustle of leaves as I tried to steady my racing thoughts. I had fought so hard to reclaim my life after Brooke's betrayal, yet here she was, ready to strike again. The video played on, her voice dripping with deceit, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. Was this the end of my journey, or just another twist in a story that seemed never-ending? Fast forward a year, and 3 months after that life-altering phone call from the bank, I stood in the small office of Marcus Daniels, my financial advisor. "Congratulations, Nicole," he said, sliding a document across his desk. "The last fraudulent account has been removed from your credit report. Your score is not quite back to where it was, but at 740, you are firmly back in the excellent range." I stared at the report, emotions welling up unexpectedly. That number represented more than just a credit score. It symbolized the reclamation of my identity and financial future after a long and painful struggle. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick, "for everything." Marcus smiled, understanding the weight of the moment. "You did the hard work. You persisted when many would have given up." Walking out of his office into the bright spring sunshine, I felt lighter than I had in months. The practical aspects of Brooke's fraud had been resolved, though the emotional aftermath continued to shape my daily life in subtle and not-so-subtle ways. My relationship with my family had settled into a new normal, different from before, but gradually finding stability. My mother and I spoke monthly, our conversations careful and limited to safe topics. The close relationship we had once shared seemed unlikely to fully return, but the raw anger had softened into a resigned acceptance on both sides. Aunt Susan had slowly come to recognize the validity of my position, especially after Brooke admitted her actions in court. Uncle Robert and Tyler remained steadfast supporters, checking in regularly and including me in family events, even when my mother and Brooke were present. As for Brooke, our relationship had been fundamentally altered. The blind trust and automatic forgiveness I had extended throughout our lives had been replaced by cautious, limited interaction. She was 9 months into her probation, working at an entry-level position in retail and living in a modest apartment partially subsidized by our mother. True to her word, she had begun making small restitution payments, though at the current rate, it would take decades to repay the full amount. The practical reality was that I would likely never recoup much of the financial loss, a fact I had come to accept. More significant than the money was Brooke's gradual but noticeable change in behavior. Would she ever truly understand the depth of her betrayal? Or was this just another chapter in a story that would continue to unfold? The grandiose claims and constant manipulation had given way to a more subdued demeanor. Whether this represented genuine growth or simply the constraints of her legal situation remained uncertain, but it was a change nonetheless. My own life had undergone significant transformation as well. The experience had forced me to examine patterns and assumptions I had carried since childhood, particularly around family dynamics and my role as the responsible one. With Dr. Reed's guidance, I had begun establishing healthier boundaries, not just with my family but in all relationships. Professionally, I had returned to work with renewed focus and eventually earned a promotion that helped stabilize my finances. My savings account was slowly growing again, though my approach to financial security had evolved. I now maintained multiple accounts at different institutions and invested in regular credit monitoring services protective measures against future vulnerability. My plan to purchase my own home remained intact, though postponed and modified. The experience had taught me to value flexibility and emergency reserves above the status of homeownership priorities that shaped my revised financial planning. 6 weeks after receiving the cleared credit report, I encountered Brooke Dawson unexpectedly at a local coffee shop. I had stopped in for a quick latte before work, and she was behind me in line. For a moment, we both froze, the familiar awkwardness of our new reality settling between us. "Nicole Morgan," she said finally. "Hi, Brooke Dawson." I nodded, uncertain whether to continue the conversation or pay for my drink and leave. She solved the dilemma by asking, "Do you have a minute to talk?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat at a small table by the window, the morning sunlight creating patterns on the worn wooden surface between us. "You look good," she said, and seemed to mean it. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. She wore simple jeans and a plain sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. "Thanks. How are you?" I asked the polite question, feeling strange given our history. "Managing," she replied with unexpected honesty. "The job is not exciting, but it is steady. My counselor is helping me understand my spending issues." She paused, then added, "I have not opened any new credit cards." The statement, delivered with a hint of pride, struck me as both sad and encouraging. The bar was low, but she was acknowledging it existed. "That is good," I said, unsure how to navigate this new territory. Brooke Dawson looked down at her coffee, then met my eyes directly. "I have been thinking a lot about why I did what I did. Not just the identity theft, but all of it. The lying and manipulation. It was not just about money or things." I waited, giving her space to continue. "I was trying to be someone I am not, creating this fantasy life where I was important and successful, taking shortcuts instead of doing the work." She shook her head. "I watched you build your life, step by step, and instead of doing the same, I resented you for it and tried to take what you had created." The insight surprised me. It was more self-aware than anything I had heard from Brooke Dawson before. "Mom always made excuses for me," she continued. "She never made me face consequences. I think she thought she was protecting me, but she was just teaching me I could get away with anything." "And now," I asked quietly, "now I am learning what it means to be accountable. It is not fun," she admitted with a small, Rofal smile, "but it feels more real than anything in my life before." We talked for nearly an hour, the conversation more honest than any we had shared since childhood. There were no dramatic promises of changed behavior or tearful pleas for forgiveness, just a quiet acknowledgement of reality and tentative steps toward a new kind of relationship. As I stood at the threshold of my new life, the weight of Brooke's question hung in the air like a storm cloud. The distant hum of Minneapolis felt suffocating, each heartbeat echoing my uncertainty. Would I ever trust her again? The flickering streetlight cast shadows that danced like memories, taunting me with what once was. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from an unknown number. My heart raced. Could it be Brooke, or someone else with a hidden agenda? I hesitated, the choice looming before me. As we prepared to leave, Brooke asked, "Do you think we will ever be close again?" I considered her words carefully. "I don't know. Trust once broken is difficult to rebuild, but I'm open to seeing who you become now." It was the most honest answer I could give, neither closing the door completely nor offering false assurances. In the months that followed, I continued rebuilding my life with newfound wisdom. The experience had taught me painful but valuable lessons about family dynamics, financial security, and my own resilience. I discovered strength I didn't know I possessed and identified vulnerabilities I had previously ignored. Most importantly, I learned that family love doesn't require blind acceptance of harmful behavior. Establishing boundaries isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. Sometimes the most caring action towards someone is allowing them to face the consequences of their choices. The road ahead wouldn't be perfect or painless. Brooke's restitution payments would likely remain inconsistent. Family gatherings would continue to carry an undercurrent of tension. The complete restoration of my financial position would take years rather than months. But I emerged from the experience with a clearer understanding of myself and a stronger foundation for the future. The betrayal that had once seemed devastating unexpectedly became an opportunity for growth and authenticity. As I look back on this journey, I wonder how many of you have experienced betrayal by someone you trusted and loved. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between family loyalty and self-protection? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please drop a like and subscribe to hear more personal journeys of resilience and growth. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that establishing boundaries with family is not only okay but sometimes necessary for healing. The wind whipped around Nicole Morgan as she stepped onto the rooftop, city lights flickering like unpaid bills on her phone. The scent of rain hung in the air, a reminder of the storm brewing inside her. Suddenly, Brooke Dawson appeared, her face streaked with tears under the neon glow. Nicole held out the final document. Foreclosure averted, debts cleared, identity restored. As Brooke's tear grazed the page, it felt thunderous, echoing the weight of their shared past. The camera tilted up to the storm-charged sky, where lightning forked like a subscribe button pressed in anticipation. "I didn't just get my credit back," Nicole's voiceover whispered. "I got me back." In that moment, the tension of betrayal transformed into a cathartic release. Nicole had fought for her financial security and reclaimed her identity. But the journey wasn't over. Trust, once shattered, takes time to mend. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you loved? How did you navigate the delicate balance between family loyalty and self-preservation? Your stories matter. Remember, protecting yourself is not selfish. It's essential.